Welcome to another episode of the AlbumReview.net podcast. I'm Greg Potters. Joining me for episode number 94 is Will Thomas. Will hails from the southwest part of France. He is a producer, guitarist, and composer. Will recently graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston with a degree in contemporary writing and production with a conducting minor. And at Berklee, he founded his band, the William Thomas Orchestra, which is compiled of 5 members. The William Thomas Orchestra released their first album in 2023 titled Boston the Hard Way, and most recently released a single on September 30th, 2025 titled Lost My Beagle Today. This is the song that caught my attention. So I also work as a curator for a music sharing platform coincidentally out of France called Groover. You may see many of my posts titled Song of the Day You Must Hear. Those are mostly from artists who submit their music to be curated and reviewed by me. Well, when I heard Will's song, Lost My Beagle Today, I was floored. It not only had tenacity and an almost jokingly playful first few minutes, but William's guitar talent shines during this song, especially in his solo. In this episode, Will and I are going to talk about his life growing up in France, his move to the US, and attending the prestigious Berklee College of Music, his band, and his future. So pour your brandy into your tea or coffee, light that fire in the fireplace, and get ready to be taken on this journey with this one. This is guitarist, producer, and composer William Thomas. Let's do this. Joining me today is Will Thomas. He goes by Will or William. And Will, thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to get into, of course, your music, your influences, and what you're working on these days. But first of all, just a little intro for our listeners. Will was born in Toulouse, a town in the southwest part of France. He's a producer, a guitarist, and a composer. And you recently, Will, graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston with a degree in contemporary writing and production with a conducting minor. Is that right?
That's true, yes.
Yeah. And how long ago was it just this past spring or was it
in 2024?
Okay.
May 24. So.
Well, congratulations for that. And so you're not only a rock musician, but you're classically trained, which is, in my opinion, very cool. At Berklee, you founded the William Thomas Orchestra, which is compiled of 5 members, if I have that right.
Usually, yes.
Usually, yes. I'm in a band as well, and I know how that goes. And you guys record and perform multiple compositions. So the orchestra, your band, released their first album in 2023 titled Boston the Hard Way.
True.
And then your second album, Asparagus, was last year in 2024.
That's right.
And then most recently, you guys released an EP and a single on September 30th. So a couple months ago. And that was this year, obviously 2025. And that was what was brought to my attention. It actually, I think you had submitted your music to me through a company based out of France called Groover. And I've been working as a Groover curator for a couple of years and had a really positive experience with them. And I review a lot of music on a weekly basis. And when I heard your music, it really stuck out in comparison to a lot of the things I listen to. And I also want to geek out with you about, your setup, your music theory, so I've got a lot planned here. So I'm going to really have to struggle to keep this at the block that we had discussed, but I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, you always want to talk about so much stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I have to cut these into 2 episodes, but no, we'll get through it. So, and also since 2023, Will, you've been the rhythm guitar player for the band Unruly Few, who released a debut album this year in 2025 titled If You Go Walking. So you've been busy, my friend, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I go wherever the wind takes me, musically speaking.
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have. So I can make some assumptions, but I like to ask, this has been on my mind for a couple of weeks. First off, when did you first come to Boston to attend Berklee? What was it about? Like, how did Berklee get on your radar?
So it's a pretty long story. I mean, I heard about it when I was in high school, and I heard that there was this huge music school in the US. And I don't know, I was hearing about it, I think watching YouTube videos of people who went there or like musicians. And at the same time, I think my parents heard about it, probably from what I know, watching a documentary on TV about the school, about Berkeley. And for my 18th birthday, which is majority in France, they offered me a 2 week performance program at Berkeley, but in Spain, in Valencia,
Oh,
where
wow.
the school has a campus there. And through this program, you had the opportunity of actually getting auditioned for the school to become an actual student there. So it happened to me. They probably judged that I had, the potential to be a student there. So I took my audition, and that was it. And so after that, I got in the school starting in September 2020. So
Right at the
in
pandemic. Yeah.
during COVID. So I did my first year online, actually, from France. And then starting on the second year, my first semester, I did it in Spain. You also had this opportunity as a student to do either your first year abroad or one semester. So I did one semester in Spain. So that was fall 2021. And then spring 2022, that's when I arrived in Boston. So January 2022 is basically when I came in Boston. And since that point, I didn't leave until the end of the studies.
Became your second home a little bit. I know for me, my college town, which was not Boston, sort of became my second home.
I don't know how to say. I mean, I spent so much time there that
Right.
I know the city very well, and
I'm sure you
most of
do.
my friends are there too. So it stayed, yeah, actually a second city for me.
Did you live in an apartment that was provided by the school, or did you have to find your own apartment? Like,
No.
what neighborhood did you live in?
So I live in Somerville,
Oh, okay. Okay.
up north,
Yeah.
in like a house with multiple apartments.
It's a
And
great neighborhood.
when I come to Boston, I still do live here because my girlfriend is still a student at Berkeley.
Oh, nice.
And so when I come to Boston, usually I stay there too. So yeah, it's been the same apartment for, since 2022.
Right.
Didn't change, didn't move out.
Close to Davis Square?
Yes,
Yeah.
right on Ball Square. So right on the Green Line stop, the new
Nice.
extension. Paid in a few years.
Davis is a great, I hope it still is, but when I was living in the city 25 years ago, it was one of my favorite places in terms of music. Not only seeing live music, there was a really famous club, Johnny D's, I believe, or Jimmy D's, that closed a couple of years ago. There was the Somerville Theater, there was the Burn, there were a lot of clubs there that I actually had the opportunity to play at as well. But one of my favorite neighborhoods in the entire, city or greater metro area of
Yeah.
the city. So that's really cool.
It's a nice place and good restaurants.
Great.
Yeah.
A lot of diversity, I felt. I feel like Boston, I mean, many big cities do, but Boston has a lot of diverse types of restaurants. So you can get, of course, your Asian food, but you can also get, food from Brazil, all parts of Africa, South America, you name it, right? So in terms of the admissions process at Berkeley, you said you had to audition. Tell me about that. I've always been curious to ask. I've spoken to other graduates of Berkeley before, and they've told me about their experience. What was the audition process like?
So I knew the basics in the sense of I knew what they were going to ask me. So you have, of course, a prepared piece. So I played YYZ by Rush. I don't know why, that's what I was preparing. So yeah, pretty technical, but yeah, and that part to me, and I guess you always look back and you're always like, oh, I could have done that better. That didn't go well because my tone The day off was not good at all. I remember I had a friend at the program who also got in the school, also French, and he let me use his overdrive pedal. And so when I came in the room, the amp was not set up correctly. And because of the pressure and the stress, I didn't set it up correctly because I was like, okay, I have to play. I can't make, the examiner wait for me.
Right.
And so I played YYZ with a rather clean tone, like a crunchy tone instead of
Right.
an overdriven tone. So
Right.
you could hear, that means you hear mistakes
I know what you
crystal
mean.
clear when
Yes. Yeah.
sounds crystal clear. So thankfully, I didn't do huge mistakes, but the tone was horrible. So I was very unsatisfied with that and still is to this day. And then there is like the whole, Berkeley theory thing where they ask you to improvise a little bit on the chord progression. Usually it's a blues. Then they ask you to repeat rhythms. So they will clap something in their hands. You have to repeat it. Not recognition too. And then you also have a reading part. So all of that wasn't really, hard for me.
Sure.
Or it's like
Sure.
I'm bragging, but
No, I understand.
wasn't
Yeah.
that hard. See, it's not that hard. And you have an interview process with someone else, but like your goals, motivations.
Right. Right. So there's the
Very
technical
helpful.
part, and then there's and I think any kind of standard musician can, we learn a lot of times by listening, right? I'm sadly not a composer. I don't know how to read music. I took some theory classes in college, but I learned by listening. And I know that's sort of I don't know,
Right.
the untechnical way of doing it. But as a technical person, you're hearing, you're hearing a rhythm and then you just have to regurgitate it or spit it
Yeah,
back. So I can imagine that's not too difficult to do.
and also I since I did classical music, reading was not an issue at
Right.
all.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
that I was pretty happy with that actually.
You're like my brother from another mother when you said YYZ from Rush, because I'm actually going to be seeing them on their reunion tour this
Oh,
summer.
nice. That's nice.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that was the day that announcement was made. I practically fell out of my chair when I saw the news. And I'm very interested to see the new drummer as well. But anyways, how long was it until you found out that you got admitted into the school or
So the
accepted?
program was in July, and I think I had the answer, I think end of November or beginning of December of the same year. So it took 6 months,
Yeah. Okay.
and
All right.
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And so you answered my next question already indirectly, but I was going to ask you, like, why did you choose to move to Boston over New York or Los Angeles? As many people obviously know, musicians, when they either living in the United States or when they come to the United States, those are usually the two places that they go first. Was it primarily just because of Berkeley that you chose
Well,
Boston?
yeah, definitely
Yeah,
because of the studies.
sure.
I think if I didn't study at Berkeley, I wouldn't have moved to the US in the first place,
Right.
And then after the studies, I stayed. So I had an extension year where I was able to start working on my own. And so I stayed in Boston for multiple reasons. Also because I like the city, it grows on you. At first, I had, it was really hard for me. That's why also the first EP is called Boston the Hard Way,
I
because
love it. I
it,
love
it
that.
was a reflection of my, not my life, but a reflection of what I was thinking at the time. Um,
Sure.
Thought it was, I was taking it the hard way. Because, you come in January, it's super cold,
Yeah,
snow everywhere, and it's like new people, new culture, new way of living, and it was pretty rough.
I can
But
imagine.
then after time, the city grows on you. And so I really like Boston. So I stayed there, and then I've never been a big, huge city. In France, I don't live
Yeah,
in
you
town.
live right.
I live like kind of
Yeah, you're out in
almost
the
in between
countryside,
countryside
right?
and city. I'm in a
Okay.
town. It's like in between the two, basically. So I've never been too, you know, keen on living in the city. And so, yeah, LA and New York, I know they are big hubs. I'm not inspired by it at all.
Interesting.
And the experience of a lot of my friends who moved to LA for a while, just visited, was always almost always negative. So for now, I don't feel the need to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. I realize the value that it can provide if you're trying to be in either entertainment or music or anything of that nature. But yes, especially Los Angeles. I don't want to knock. I've got very close friends who live out there, but I notice something, I'll admit something about when I leave Los Angeles, I have to shake off this desire to like always make sure that I'm looking my best when I walk out of the house. Everybody there, not everybody, but a lot of the people in my experience, it's like they're like ridiculously beautiful people. And I'm like, is there something in the water here? You know? And so everything has pros and cons. I mean, they have their traffic, we have ours as well. But did you find it difficult when you first got to Boston to adjust to the attitude here, which I feel comfortable saying it as I've been born and raised.
No,
You
I
know,
didn't.
that it's you didn't. Okay, well that's good. I'm glad that we were nice to you.
Yeah, I mean, Americans in general are super nice compared to French
I'm
people.
glad you said that. I sometimes
It's actually refreshing to, meet Americans sometimes because everything is so positive
really,
and always going forward. So
yeah,
it's a breath of fresh air sometimes.
that's really great to hear. I always worry that our MO over the last decade has become less welcoming. And it's really warms my heart to hear that, especially coming from you. So getting a little deep here. When was the first time, going back, Will, when was the first time that you knew you were in love with music? Do you remember? I asked this because I have a personal experience and I won't bore people with the details, but do you remember the day or the month or even the year that you just knew this was something inside you?
Well, I always loved music. You know what I mean? It's like from when I was a child, and my earliest musical memories are very early. I think my earliest musical memory, not like me playing an actual instrument, but the most vivid memory I have with music is being in the car driving to the mountains with my parents and my dad listening to Dark Side of the Moon. And to me, that's starts here. I mean, I remember.
Got this.
I mean, that's one I would say. My godmother's husband used to play guitar a little bit, just for himself. And when I was very young, my parents told me that I used to just look at him and be hypnotized by the guitar. So that's also maybe an element that pushed me, maybe not towards music in general, but maybe towards guitar as an instrument.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, pretty early on, I think I was feeling something special with some sort of music, at least, not all types. And then it just grew and grew. And when I was in middle school, I started writing my own songs. And maybe I started thinking, well, of course, you want to become a rock star. Of course, you want to do it. So I started talking about it more and more. And obviously, at first, your parents tell you, well, you're going to study something normal and you're going to find a real job. And then, if you want to have fun with it, then you can do it.
Wow.
You have talent. So, but first you need security.
Yeah.
But the Berklee reputation kind of changed that because they thought, okay, here it's not just a conservatory. He's not just going to learn how to play good. And then that's basically it. And then God knows what you can do with that because there are plenty of amazing musicians in the world. So, but you learn a craft if you want to. So that's why I went in like a more like composition and production major because I knew I had this talent of writing music and composing and having creative ideas. So I said I could just learn how to do it better and more consistently, and then I can do it for other people. And that's a
Yeah.
and that's the job. And then if my music doesn't work or if it doesn't, all right, if I don't get any success, then I can still do something and it's still music related and I still love what I'm doing. So
Right.
the best of both worlds in my eyes.
Yeah, you have a very similar story to, I think, a lot of people, including myself. My parents were like, "Oh, music, that's fun, but Greg, you need to focus on like getting a real job." That's a lot of what they would say to me. Well, you can do that, in your spare time. But it almost also sounds like many musicians I talk to will, your parents sort of maybe they came around a little bit and they nurtured your musical love. I mean, you just explained it from when they gave you that gift of taking the classes at Berklee in Spain. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge, right? I think if a parent, any parent, and I learned this valuable lesson with my kids, I've got a 15 and a 13-year-old, that when they start to find something, and for me, it was around 12, age 12. But when they start to find something that they love, I really want to use an analogy of growing plants, like I want to water that and see it grow. So exactly. And I
I
always say to
think that,
them, unless
yeah.
you're, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, no, I mean, I was
No.
just going to add to that. My dad told me later that he also thought it was a good idea to put me in a small program at Berkeley first because he thought that
Let's see
way,
if this kid's serious.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was also part of that for them, seeing when I'm in the context of actually being only surrounded by good musicians
Right. You're going to get
and in
intimidated.
an excellence
Yeah.
type of situation and with, great musicians, great teachers, great classrooms, great infrastructure, how I was reacting if I was able to actually, you know, play the guitar properly,
Right.
if I was doing the job, if I was serious about it. And I think that, was part of convincing them that I could have a future in this world is because they said, okay, if he's in this context, he can make it, then maybe we'll see if he can go further than, just the program.
It's a valuable lesson that I love hearing. It's, anyone out there who's a parent, support your kids. I always say to my kids, as long as you're not hurting someone else or yourself, I'll support whatever you want to do in life.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because I got into my head in my early 20s. This isn't going to sustain, Greg. I can't be playing the Burren at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday and then go to my full-time job at 7:30 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
So I think that nurturing is just so important. So, and you mentioned, I remember now reading in your bio that I think that you were on your website that you were staring at was it your uncle you said? You were staring at your uncle,
My
um,
there's has
your godmother's husband, okay, playing the guitar and you were
yeah.
just in a trance. And so I can certainly relate to that as well.
Yeah.
You also mentioned in your bio that one of your biggest influences, I think you mentioned this to me as well when we had our intro call a couple weeks ago, one of your biggest influences is Frank Zappa.
Yes.
Tell me more about this. Did someone introduce you to Frank's music or did you discover it on your own?
I think the first time I heard about him was with my guitar teacher in France when I was a
Okay.
kid. He, my guitar teacher, wanted me to reach a certain level on guitar, and I think because maybe he felt already that I would be able to grow in the instrument. So he always was giving me more work. And when I switched to electric guitar, I know I was a bit frustrated because he used to make me read impossible scores that he would write for me because he was like, you need to become like a beast at that. You need to. And you know, I was a bit frustrated with that because all I wanted to do was ripping AC/DC and Deep Purple in the club, the town, and not being here on Saturdays at 8 a.m.
Right.
and literally reading and reading and reading random stuff.
Wow.
And through these kind of exercises, he mentioned Frank Zappa a few times, probably telling me, I don't exactly remember, but I heard him tell me this name a few times, and basically it being associated with this idea of complex music, but the musicians are amazing and they can read anything, and so you have to get to this level. So I heard about it like that, but then I think I started listening to it in high school. Really, it was in high school. I found a video, probably like on Instagram, an extract of a song, and then maybe I said, let's check it out, full version, and that was like the rabbit hole kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, the first song of him I ever listened to, I think, is Montana.
Okay.
And then it's either Montana or Echidna for You, which is like super complex.
Yeah.
Out of the Roxy album. And thinking, instead of being afraid of it and being like, who is this?
Which happens to most people, right? Like, who is this crazy person?
My father, who loves rock and he's responsible for the huge basics of my musical culture, he can't listen to Frank Zappa. He can't. It's impossible for him, except like a few here and there.
I think I understand.
Moments.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it clicked with me, like the songs, the humor in the lyrics. And then once I started hearing his guitar playing, I can describe the emotions I felt. It was like nothing I ever heard a guitar player play. And it was like maybe the first time I was hearing guitar that I couldn't understand.
Right.
That seems strange to say, but not that I understand what other guitar players do, but I can imagine what they are actually doing on the fretboard. When I listen to Frank Zappa, I have no idea. I can't visualize how he's playing the guitar. And I think that was what made me have so much interest.
That's such a great explanation. You know, I'm not a drummer, but that's the way I feel when I hear Neil Peart. I feel like I can lay down a standard drum line, but when I hear him, I'm like, the joke I always make is I can't even air drum to fake him. And so the first Zappa song I ever heard was St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but there was a guy in my high school that I looked up to because he was just this cool, long-haired dude, Mike Gardner, and he played guitar. And he performed in front of the school one day doing Sweet Emotion. And he just blew the doors off the place. And this was, those private schools that you see in the movies that are in New England, that are in the Boston area where the boys are wearing the ties. And it was that kind of thing. And he just blew the doors off and was like, for all you people that are, stuffy and stuck up, I'm going to kick your. And he said at the end of his performance, Frank Zappa, you are my God. And I think a lot of teachers were like, oh. And immediately I was like, I have to check out this Frank Zappa guy. And so wasn't as impressed. I go back now and I enjoy the song a lot. But I remember being like, whoa, this isn't for me. But it took me another friend of mine introducing me to Watermelon and Easter Hay. And that was the one that did it for me. And I turned a corner at that moment and then went to the record store the next day and bought all of his, I guess it was all of his CDs, and which was a lot. And so I connected with you on that level as well. But when you were talking earlier just about when you heard it, it was like, this isn't something, I know what you mean. I think that's what encourages a lot of professional athletes and musicians where, you hear things and they're sort of not elementary. I don't want to knock anybody's talent, but it's, oh yeah, oh great, oh nice job working on that song. But when you hear something that you can't even comprehend, I think those who really want to maybe not succeed, but just push their talent further is, I have to find out. I'm obsessed with finding out how he or she does this. And right. And you almost become obsessed with it. And I think it's the same with athletes. Like when I talk to professional athletes, I'm like, oh, this person's just a little crazy, but they have to be in order to succeed at that level. Right. So I think that's a great analogy. And so getting into your most recent, correct me if I'm wrong, but the song that you sent to me that I heard was Lost My Beagle Today. I want to geek out on that. Walk me through the arrangement of the song. Obviously, I think I mentioned to you in our introductory call that I was really digging the song. I was enjoying it, but then, and I was like, oh, I can see the Zappa. But then when you went into your guitar solo, like everything in the room, like the birds all paused, and I was like, whoa, So I was like, I have to meet this guy. So I have to admit, Will, I'm doing this as an interview, but I'm also a really big fan. So
It means it.
yeah, well, likewise for being on this. But walk me through the arrangement of the song. Do you remember? And if you don't, it's okay. But do you
Yeah.
remember coming up with
Yeah.
it and how you pieced it all together?
The first idea came literally walking my dog, walking the beagle that you see on the picture, who now sadly not of this world.
Oh, God. Rest in
I
peace.
was walking
What was his name?
Gers, so it's
Jess.
Gers, and that's like what's the equivalent? It's like we have, we divide France in regions and then in departments.
Yes.
Departments would be like counties for you. So Gers is like the adjacent county to where I live. And he was born in this county. And so they named him, it was the year of the G letter. And so they named
Oh,
him
wow.
by
Oh,
the
that's
name
a
of the
cool
county.
story.
Yeah. So I was walking him, and I don't know, that's how songs begin. I heard that, but I had this melody in my head, and then I started singing literally. Well, I lost my beagle today, and then I was, and the first verse came like that.
Wow.
I don't know how to explain. I just got it.
Wow.
And then I said, okay, I need to remember that because I'm gonna forget. So I probably recorded it on my phone. I'm not even sure. But once I came back home, I immediately ran to the office and I took my acoustic guitar and I started finding the key and then playing that. And I was like, okay. And then the first verses came in 10 minutes. And then basically the song, like the songwriting, I had it in an hour. And then I found it. Da, 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 ba. I love doing this kind of stuff. So it just came naturally. At the end of the day, it's just a blues, okay, a blues structure. So that was pretty quick. And then it was during like winter vacation. So I was in France. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity to write the score. And then I'll show it to the guys when I come back during rehearsal. And at first, the song would stop after when you have on the bridge, you have the girls singing, standing up, and then it goes into the heavy part. I lost my beagle today, whatever. And it used to stop around there.
Okay.
And you will have the instrumental part. That was the first version of it. And when I came back to Boston, I had this version in my head. And my goal was to finish the song and then stick a little transition part to go in another tune during live performance. And I remember when I was auditioning a new bass player, I wrote like a little riff for the audition to test it, to see how she was able to read. And I remembered that riff and I said, oh, but it's in the same key as Lost My Beagle. So I started playing a little bit with it on guitar. And then I was like, okay, we will stick the two parts together.
Kind of took two songs and put those together. Yeah.
Then we'll do a guitar solo because I love improvising on the guitar. And so
Yeah.
then the improvisation part came in, discussion with Mike. I'm the only one taking it.
Of course.
In my head, I was like, okay, in this part, I want it to be like this soft beginning and then it goes into a heavier
Right.
section. And that was for live purposes because I like to build things.
Oh, yeah.
I heard
You
some.
wake the crowd up as well. And,
Yeah, at first, this song was not meant to be recorded in the studio at all. It was because we had a recital at the school, and I was like, okay, we need some material to play. So
right.
that purely live driven. And so I remember Zappa songs. There are a few of them, but he does that often. For example,
He does.
Song Yo Mama, which is on Shake Your Booty, but
Yes.
also he has live versions out there like the Chicago 78, which is great. Maybe you'll put extracts there. He has that thing where it's like very clean at first, and then suddenly you hear he's doing something with the overdrive,
Yeah.
And he does it also on Torture Never Stops. Often case, he will start with a clean sound and then bring a dirty sound throughout. So
Yes.
that's what I want to do. And then that was it. And then rehearsal and rehearsal and rehearsing. And
So can you recall because I've geeked out on a lot of your YouTube videos, and one of them that caught my attention, there were a bunch of them, but what's so cool about your videos, it's like how to get the David Gilmour sound. I think you put out a video like that. It was a couple of years ago, maybe. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to this right away. My band, we practiced last night and we played Time. And our guitar player, I couldn't tell you what it was, but he has these pedals. And he's, look what I have the setting as. And just on the screen, it just says David Gilmour tone. For Lost My Beagle, for your solo, like what kind of tech did you use to get that sound? Do you remember?
In the studio, I use the Axifix.
Okay.
Maybe if you're familiar, that's like a piece of a rack unit. Discovered it thanks to a Zappa guy, not Frank, but Drizzo, his son, which is, he uses that live.
Right.
I remember seeing it and saying, wow, this thing can do so. So I said, I'm going to get one. So I bought one of the old ones, which is much cheaper. And you can do so many things with these machines. And so, yeah, I mean, for this song, basically, it's a Marshall sound.
Okay.
30. When I go in the solo section, I probably did some stereo thing. I don't recall the preset exactly, but I remember
it's okay.
having, like a clean version of the amp, and then I would just press a different preset for the solo, and then I would have the flanger plus the delay plus the overdrive and the fuzz coming in, and then I would play with that. But all of that was happening in the machine.
How is your patience? This is something that I struggle with. I bought my first bass pedal. So I've been a bass player since 1989. So we're going on 37 years. And for the first time in my life, I bought a pedal I'm going to butcher the terminology, but I bought a system that has multiple pedals on it. And it's kicking my ass and I can't figure it out. And when I get a setting, I can't figure out how to go back to it. I've tried a bunch of YouTube videos. Anyway, I'm not looking for your instruction on that, but have you had moments where you're like where the tech has just, you go down this rabbit hole? I got to think it requires a great deal of patience.
It's easy to get frustrated with it. What I do usually, if I have to tone match or tone chase, or if I have to, tone chasing is pretty easy because you have so much information available on what the guys were using. For example, the Gilmour video that I did, it's so easy to know exactly what piece of gear he's using and the settings even. So.
Well, you even say that, which I love about your video is you go through all the details so that like someone who doesn't maybe even really know music or they're new at guitar can follow along with you. So that's very valuable.
A lot of people don't do it.
Right.
I to be frustrated because I'm like, what does bass and mids and like, where should I? And the only thing I can say is trial and error. You have to sound shitty to sound better.
Right. Yes.
Bad, and then, but when you come to a piece of gear like the Fractal and you have so many options, I have documentation. I have 2 PDFs.
Yeah, you got to take notes.
300 pages each.
Yeah,
and it's every amp, every cab, every drive.
Yeah,
and then it
doesn't surprise me.
The original piece of gear, and then it explains how the amp reacts, and then from there I can. And the more you use it, obviously, you start knowing what you like, what you don't like, which amp you like, which amp you don't like,
right,
etc., etc. But when I was playing still with the amp and the pedals, it was, messing with it, often trying extreme settings too. That's true also for mixing. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But don't be afraid to go extreme with the thing. If there is if the setting lets you go that far, there is a reason for it. So,
my biggest challenge is remembering there's so many buttons on this thing. And I think I dove in. Well, I did dive in head first, but I think I bit off, use analogies a lot or terms. Like I bit off more than I could chew. That's something that I say a lot. And So this is fresh in my mind because at practice last night, we practice every Thursday night, kicked my butt again. And I ended up just unplugging it and plugging straight into my amp and just going with a clean sound. But we play a song that I love by Herbie Hancock called Chameleon, and the bass has this really funky 70s groove, and I love that. And when I first plugged it in, the guys in the band were like, "Whoa!" And I love that, and we've played it
Yeah.
live before, and people are like, "Where did this come from?" So, no, thank you for that. And I guess the lesson is just patience, and I've got to take more time. And for anyone
Yeah,
else listening out there,
gonna take time at some
yeah,
point to get the settings right, or
yeah,
also when you want to achieve a tone that you know already exists, in the sense of you want to copy a tone, not get the tone of someone, but maybe you're like, for bass, you're like, oh, I love the tone of, let's say, Justin Chancellor of Two. Well, then just listening to a bunch of his bass, you can tell, some ideas that he has in the sound. And so then you can try to get closer to that.
yeah.
So using a reference can also help at first to dial in a little bit,
Well, taking notes, your PDF that you mentioned as well, that's something I'm going to take that advice as well.
Or pictures. Thank God the PDF
Yes.
was made by someone else, and I happened to find it on the forum. But also I check websites, I don't know, like Equipboard, for example. If you have a piece of gear and you want to hear someone play through it, if you know an artist that uses the same piece of gear, it's pretty easy to find how they use it and what you can do with it.
Yeah. I haven't, for this, it's a Korg. I sadly haven't found really any good YouTube videos out there, but maybe I need to dig deeper. So anyways, tell me more about your rig. What I noticed in your videos, you have a couple different guitars, but God, it's been about a week or two since I saw one of your last videos, but I saw an SG in there a lot. That's your main guitar.
Yeah, that's it.
And what is it about the SG that you like? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it.
This one in particular, I don't know how to explain it. I just played so well.
I know what you mean. Yeah. You're like, wow, I sound really good. Yes,
and
I know what you mean.
Something like that with any other guitar.
Interesting.
And sadly, I guess it's never gonna go, because the more you play a guitar, the more you get used to it. And
I know.
when you switch guitars, it's like it's not exactly there. So
yeah,
I don't know how to explain it. And it gives me the sounds that I prefer humbucker sound.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, and then so yeah, the SG is just my favorite guitar. I don't know how to explain.
I get it. It's humbuckers are a fairly popular pickup, but for a reason, they produce good sound, right? I feel that way with a Fender Jazz bass. My wife got me, and to this day, I mean, so this was 8 years ago, almost 9. She surprised me with the Fender Jazz, and like I couldn't breathe well for a minute, and I was like, "Oh my God." And I think I even started crying, and I started taking pictures of it, and I could go a month without playing, and I picked that thing up, and it's like it's easy for me in a way. So I know what you mean. Your explanation resonates with me, and I'm sure with a lot of other musicians as well. But for people out there that are listening to this that maybe are new to playing guitar or playing any instrument, maybe before you invest a lot in a particular instrument, mess around with a couple different ones and see what maybe works,
It was not my first guitar. It was
same. Yeah.
I had Strats before. I had PRF. I had the Jazz Master even.
All great guitars, but I know what you mean. Sometimes you just find the one.
For the SG.
Yeah.
And that was it, since I had the SG since 2019.
So you read my mind earlier, getting into mixing. I wanted to geek out a little bit on that. Tell me about the tech that you use when you for recording the latest EP for the William Thomas Orchestra. What was it? Logic Pro or Pro Tools? What did you use? What kind of tech did you use to record and mix?
We recorded Beagle at Berklee in the studio.
Oh, beautiful.
So we had access to.
Oh my gosh. That's the beauty. Yeah. When you're home, answer that. And then I'm curious as to what you use when you're at home. Yeah.
Well, so, studio at Berklee, they have nice consoles and nice, everything. So nice mics. So that was like a pretty smooth recording process. And then when I mix myself, in my home studio. Usually I mix on Pro Tools.
Mhm.
I use Logic Pro more for producing or
Okay.
cutting demos, stuff like this. But
Sure.
in recording, mixing, usually it's Pro Tools. And then
And what is it about?
nowadays,
Sorry to cut you off, but what is it about? I mean, I think I know the answer, but what is it about Pro Tools that you like over some of the others?
at first I hate.
Why? Because of its complexity?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
most people actually hate it. But then I learned it. So I
You're a
learned it.
driven guy. You're driven. It's
Yeah.
like you hear something, you
I
hear
think-
Zappa, and you're like, I don't know if I could emulate that, but I'm gonna freaking die trying.
Well, Pro Tools, I had to learn it with school. So,
Mm,
I mean, it was part of the
yes.
field. So
Yeah.
I learned it and then I became familiar with it. And then now it's second nature and it's great. It's just, it's old. Sometimes you
Yeah.
don't understand what it's trying to do.
Right.
Just have to let it be.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And everyone says the same thing. Oh, it's the industry standard. It is. So, and if it stayed like that, I think there is a reason. So it's very complete. It's a very complete software and it can do a lot of things very well. Whereas other softwares, not necessarily Logic Pro, but other softwares usually do one thing or two extremely well. And then the rest can be a little bit.
That's
gimmicky.
interesting. Yeah.
Whereas Pro Tools does a lot of things very well. And what it doesn't do well, it's mediocre. So it's not bad.
Yeah. I get
Which
it.
means you can work in pretty much every situation.
Yeah. I
And yeah,
I get it. I
when you
just
get used to it, you just, yeah.
I just mixed my band's first demo, 5 songs. They're covers, but I use GarageBand, and it's
Mhm.
mainly because I got it free on my Mac a couple years ago. But I think I'm in the process of moving up to Logic just because I hear a lot of good things about it. But I really realized and this was not long after I watched some of your videos that I really realized like, oh, I see what he's saying. And I became obsessed, and I sat down to do a lot of podcast work one night, but then I was like, I got to go in and mix this. And so I found myself like in GarageBand for 4 or 5 hours, just tweaking this and that and this. And I can see how you can dive down a rabbit hole with no knock on GarageBand, but with tech that might be a little bit more sophisticated and complex. You're obviously, you get what you pay for, I guess, is really the lesson at the end of the day, right? But there's still a lot of good tech out there that is free or low cost that can add some value. But when you're a recording artist yourself, when you use some of those higher end tools, you know where that money's going, and you hear it in the final product, right? So a general question, I wrote this down a couple of weeks ago, but now that you graduated from Berklee and you've been out, I always call it like I'm out in the real world. Like my first year out of college, my first 3 years out of college were tough because I was still sort of figuring out who am I, what am I doing? And I don't know if you're in those shoes, but what have you learned about music since you've gotten out of college? Like what's different now than what you thought you knew in college about music?
Oh, it's a tough question.
Take your time.
I'm always learning. I didn't use purely musically speaking in the sense of theoretical stuff or, chords or whatever. My guitar technique is always slightly improving when I'm in periods where I'm practicing more. What I really got better of, obviously, is my production and mixing skills. Because my major was not centered on studio per se. You had some studio production elements, but also all the arranging and composition stuff. So I had to basically up my level after Berklee in this category.
Mm.
And I did it by working a lot. And for example, mixing the William Thomas Orchestra stuff helped me to find better sounds, what I liked, what I disliked. And since even mixing this song, I made a lot more progress. So, find my own way of mixing, my own taste for sound, specific plugins, specific approach to this craft. So I would say most of my progress since leaving the school has been in the mixing category, or like the broader production
Right.
category.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very valuable, obviously, right? Because that's a huge part of it. There's so much music out there that I don't want to say that overproduction can hurt it, but you hear it live and sometimes it's better, but sometimes you're like, ooh, if you just took this down. And again, to your point, I learned so much. We have a saxophone player in our band, and I worked really hard to equalize and put some compression on different things here or there. And yeah, it just sounds so much better. So it actually, when I went back to the band, I was like, guys, I think we need to, I'm going to I'm going to play a little bit softer than I usually do because I feel like I have this urge to be the loudest one. And I think guitar player, you should play a little bit more, and sax, you play over here. And so it really was a lesson being in the quote unquote studio, my home studio. It also has helped transfer, translate, I guess I should say, over to the live performances as well.
Right.
So yeah, that's a really interesting point that you make. Now, so you're in France right now. You're in Boston recently, actually, last time we talked, and you're back in France now. Just out of curiosity, man, what are your future plans in terms of like where you're going to live and work? Is that something that you've thought about? Yeah, I figured.
I will, as soon as I can, I will move back to the US to work. Right now, I'm in the process of applying for my artist visa.
Yeah.
So it's just a long process. But so that's why right now I'm in France, because you have to basically apply from your
Exactly.
country
You
of
can't be
origin.
in. Yes, I know exactly how. Yeah,
That's why I'm back here. I can still work from home. Obviously, I have my gear too here, so it's not a problem. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the plan is to move back in the US as soon as I get my artist visa, and from there, we'll see what happens. Work with artists in mixing production, and then maybe on the side a little bit of my music.
right. Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to mention. You have a business. You go to Will's website. You have a business where
Right.
you produce artists and musicians. Yeah. So now, do you still trade time between playing, or I guess when you're in the States, do you still trade time between playing guitar in your band and for the Unruly Few?
Yeah, I mean, less this year.
Yeah.
Because they were still at school, so one of them graduated. So we didn't do much this year. Since also I left in July.
Right.
We played a few shows last year. With Unruly Few, we've been mostly thinking about studio stuff or recording, and maybe we can use, now it's so easy to be in different places of the world and just recording on our own some songs. So maybe we do that. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, obviously playing is still important for me, but my priority is the business, obviously. So,
Of course. Yeah, that's the next step, right? I mean, in my personal opinion, you've got the talent, right? So now it's like the business part of it, which quite frankly is something that I wish I had when I was, when I was 24, 25, 26. I didn't know any of that stuff. And I had to go through working through the corporate world to really understand business acumen. I finally ended up getting, not till 2003, I got sales training and I learned, how to sell myself or sell other things, products and services, right? But so those are very valuable. I can see you've already got a lot of the organic pieces of that already without coming across as overly,
yeah,
salesy, right?
of
So,
course.
but you need that. I would go to gigs and I would walk around with my CDs and people would be like, oh, no, thanks. And I'd be like, okay. And then funny story, there was a friend of mine who, I don't know if this is a good story to tell or not, but hopefully you'll find it funny. It was her idea. I just want to put it out there. I want to preface what I'm about to say. I was playing at a club and she was like, how many CDs do you sell? I'm like, oh, I don't know, 2 or 3 usually. She's like, I'm going to sell all of them in that box tonight. I'm like, well, there's 50 of them. She's like, well, I'm going to sell all of them. And I was like, oh, okay. So she shows up a little late. At my first set break, she comes over to me and she's dressed like I've never seen her dressed before, out to kill, so to speak. And this is my buddy's girlfriend. So, and within 20 minutes, she comes back with the empty box and is, there you go. And I was like, wow, I don't know if this is a good lesson or not a good lesson. I would have never even thought of that, nor would I have ever thought to, but I couldn't believe it. So the takeaway I got from that was a lot of it is presentation. And what I mean by that is, yes,
Yes.
they're hearing the artist, but it's also, that's a really big piece, Will. And I think that's where I got derailed early in my kind of quote unquote music career was, like I got one rejection and then I was like, oh, that's it. And, you strike me as somebody who it's just, you're like, oh, that's part of it. It's gonna happen. Not everybody is into long orchestral rock and roll, Frank Zappa-esque, others are. So I've learned, okay, I'm in my niche and here's my niche and I'm not going to be Taylor Swift and I don't need to be. So that's what's, really important. And it's good that you have your head on your shoulders and know that. So plus Berklee not only offers you that musical education, but that education, I think I tell my kids, you're not only learning civics right now and math, algebra and geometry, you're learning how to learn. And that's something that I really it didn't compute with me in college. I honestly looked at classes as meetings in between parties. And I strongly regret that. I have some great stories and some great times, but I still look at my diploma as one of my proudest, achievements because I wanted to get out of there and just play music, but I'm so grateful. And so having the educational background and some of the business training, that's just going to help you moving forward. And so that's something I can say as being out here in the real world now because the real world will beat you up.
Yeah.
But if you have music in your, yeah, exactly. Right. So, but there is a business to it. And now obviously with the internet, the way it is, you can have a service business and, there's a lot to be taken out there. There's a lot of success that's available for a lot of us out there. So you told me already a lot about your personal life growing up. So you answered a lot of my questions already, but just curious, did you have any siblings growing up or were you an only child?
I'm an
Only child. Okay. So you didn't have any older siblings to influence your musical taste. You already told me about your godmother's husband. Did I get that right? Okay. And you already told me about like the first time you remember falling in love with music. Do you remember, and you already told me about, the first Zappa that you heard. Do you remember the first album or song that you heard that really made you pay attention, whether it was Zappa or not? Was there a particular musician or musical genre that did it for you?
Yeah, Pink Floyd. Dark
Pink
Side.
Floyd. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You did say that before. Yeah. It's hilarious. And I swear on my life, I'm not just saying this. They are my number one. I mean, I do have other bands that I absolutely love and cherish, but they've been my number one since I first heard Dark Side of the Moon. And presently Animals is my favorite album out of all of theirs. But Dark
Great.
Side was the one that really, okay, this is getting a little weird. You know, I mean, yeah. And I would say technically, I gravitate towards more like Rush when I listen to Geddy and Neil and Alex, and I'm like, oh my God, like but there was just something about the arrangement that those four guys, worked towards and put together. And Nick Mason, I wouldn't say was the most technical drummer in the world, but there was just something that worked in that band.
Many books about Pink Floyd. There is one about their biography of them.
Yeah.
The intro says it's a band and it's very rare that was able to change music with huge musical limitations because none of them, some people will argue Gilmour is virtuoso, but none of them is truly a virtuoso technically speaking.
I agree. I fully agree. Yeah.
They are all very limited players in sense of they can't play whatever they want. It's not Steve Vai or
Exactly. Great examples.
to completely change rock music and progressive rock
Yeah.
with something else than just amazing solos and technique and fast and or like crazy drum lines or drum grooves. Sorry, and I always found that super interesting about them is that they got past this limit of technical difficulty.
Well, they had the early stuff. I can remember first hearing Piper at the Gates of Dawn and hearing like, I've got a bike, you can ride it if you like. And I was like, what the hell is this? But then I was like, oh, I guess this is what like British pop was back then. And I was like, and then I hear Gumma and I hear, Rick Wright's reaching into the piano and he's just like grabbing at the, inside of the piano. And that was one of the songs on the album. And I'm like, what the? And I was like, these guys, they really forgive me, like they put their balls out there and they were just like, okay, pop song. Yeah, we've got some of those over here, but we're going to do this. And then, of course, I think everyone would agree that it sort of all came together with Dark Side, and then they sort of found their way. Dave actually said this in an
Before
interview.
that, not that long to me, this like a yeah, before that, I mean, I love Atom Heart Mother.
Oh, likewise.
It's a great song. I mean,
Yes.
so incredible. And it's often overlooked.
With the orchestra and
Yeah, with the
and
orchestra and the choir, and it's just amazing. And yeah, I think Echoes has that pre-Dark Side of the Moon really
I agree.
points there, and then you
Yeah.
have Dark Side, and then you
Yeah.
have Pure, and it's just two masterpieces next to each other. But yeah, I mean, great band, great.
Yeah. Well, without discrediting any of your other work, are there any other musical compositions that are out there that you're most proud of?
Yes, I think
Asparagus.
probably the best.
That was
thing
your
I've ever
second
written.
album.
Single. Yeah, it's the best thing I've ever written. The outro, the horn outro, is just, I don't know. I think as on the composing point of view, I doubt I will ever do better just on the composition side of things. Maybe I will, I don't know. Maybe I'm lying. But I never wrote something so, I don't know how to say, so glorious.
I admire.
Beagle is great, but it's a completely different realm. So
I admire that. One of my favorite television shows of all time is a show called Breaking Bad. And the main character in real life, his name is Bryan Cranston. And what I admired about him so much was, of course, not only his performance through those, I think it was 8 seasons, but he said in an interview, and he said it multiple times, I will never have a better role than that. And a lot of interviewers were like, what do you do? Don't sell yourself short. You can, but I think that's, to me, and someone who's gone through therapy as well, you're patting yourself on the back in a right way and being like, I'm really proud of that. And what I'm also hearing from you in an indirect way is, and if I don't ever match, that's okay. I'd certainly like to strive to, but it's okay. You're not, because I think we can drive ourselves crazy where it's like, I have to better that. You hear all these stories of, artists, musicians who release their first album. I mean, I'm convinced that this is partly what killed Kurt Cobain. I mean, he pulled the trigger himself, but there was this pressure to like do better on the next album and do better on the next album. And that's why a lot of these musicians turn to drugs. I think that the culture's a lot different now today. But back in the, 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was like these record companies were pushing artists. And so to be able to comfortably say, that might have been the best composition I've ever written, and I might never beat that again, I think it shows that you're very comfortable in your own skin. And yeah, if you do it, great. But if you do beat it sometime, great. But it's also like we are dipping our foot a little bit into the objective versus subjective, right? Where like music is completely subjective. And so I used to never really understand that when I would watch award shows and be like, yeah, they are the best. And I'm like, well, now I'm like, wait a minute. Who's to say that they're the best, right? It's personal taste. So you definitely struck my personal taste. And you said it earlier. I like music where I'm like, well, I don't think I could ever play something like this. And I thought I could play anything. And I can't, who's this bass player? Who's that drummer or guitar player? So, Will, as I'm getting ready to wrap up here, is there anything else that I missed or anything that you wanted to mention or talk about? I obviously want to open that up to you as well. You've certainly been great, helpful in answering my questions.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I think it was a very interesting conversation.
Likewise.
I don't know if you wanted to talk more about, I don't know, improvisation, whatever. But yeah, that I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, I want to take an opportunity to not only stay in touch, but when you do return back to the States, I'm assuming Boston will be on one of your stops since your band and your girlfriend are here. Sure. So I'd love to have the opportunity to, have a coffee or a beer with you And I definitely want to be on your future list to be in the know when you're playing gigs. I still go to shows probably more than I should at my age, but I love them. I mean, who would, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So what I'm going to do, well, I'll wrap this up first. So I want to thank you, Will, for coming on the albumreview.net podcast. And thanks so much for going into this depth with me. For all the listeners out there, you can hear Will's music from the William Thomas Orchestra and from the Unruly Few on all the platforms where you get your music. Check him out on YouTube for you musicians out there or aspiring musicians. He's got some really detailed in the weeds, but helpful, beginner type instruction on how to get different sound on your instrument, specifically guitar, because he's a guitar player. But you can also learn more about what he does in his other business, which is helping to produce music and compose at William Thomas Prods. That's WILLIAMTHOMASPRODS, WilliamThomasProds.com. So that's your website. Will, thank you again so much, man.
Thanks to you.
This has
Thank you very
been
much for having
one
me.
of the best conversations I've had. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad.
Thank you for listening to episode number 94 and my conversation with William Thomas. Takeaways from this episode: Will is a very determined musician, if you couldn't tell. He works hard at his craft, and it was clear to me he isn't in it to just be a rock star. Will is a composer on top of being an excellent guitar player. Remember, every time you see a musician live, remember just how much time they put into their craft. It's mind-boggling. This is example 5,000 of another musician who was nurtured and encouraged during childhood. Parents, I have a message for you. For those of you listening out there with young children, whether it's music, sports, art, carpentry, whatever, when you feel your child has identified a passion, feed it, goddammit, feed it. Don't discourage. You will ruin them and put them on a false path, and they will be struggling to get off that path for years. You can hear Will's music from the William Thomas Orchestra and from his other band, the Unruly Few, on all platforms where you get your music. You can also learn more by going to WilliamThomasProds.com. That's WilliamThomasProds.com, all one word. Remember, if you're interested in any of the albums or books that I've discussed on this episode or previous episodes, go to albumreview.net and pick up a copy of your own. Listen to all my podcast album reviews at albumreview.net by clicking on the podcast tab. They can also be heard wherever podcasts are available. Please follow the show on your preferred platform so you can get regular updates on new episodes. And also, if you guys would be so kind as to pop a quick review or rate the podcast, it takes 2 seconds. That really helps move the needle and get the word out there. Also, I do want to hear from you, so please email me your feedback, album review requests, and any questions that you might have to gpotters@albumreview.net. That's GPOTTERS@albumreview.net. If you'd like to get regular updates on reviews, interviews, product, and music news, go to the homepage and join the mailing list. Visit our LinkedIn and YouTube pages and stay tuned for updates on Instagram, Facebook, and that thing that they call TikTok. You can find me at albumreview.net. All right, happy holidays. Until then, I'll see you all in 2026. Drop the needle and keep listening.
Take a trip down by the highway. 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 Take a trip